Okay, we've been talking about the French Revolution in the ninth grade class, and so we've covered a lot of this stuff here. I'm going to do that again real quick, but where I really want to get to is kind of how does the French Revolution kind of come to an end, and how do we get Napoleon Bonaparte taking power in France? So we're going to do a quick rundown of all these things. And I kind of zeroed the camera a little bit because I want you to be able to read what I've written up here. And it's just some cue points for you and for me. And then I'll have to move my camera to aim over there. So it's all very high tech. So just stay with me. All right, French Revolution, 1789 to 1799. And we've talked about all these things that are kind of the background issues that are driving France toward revolution. We've talked about the kind of sad shape of the monarchy, that it was unpopular king and queen, Louis XVI, kind of a weak personality, Marie Antoinette, tremendously unpopular. She's Austrian, she's seen as somebody who just spends lots of money and maybe has some more sinister whisperings in the king's ear. She's blamed for a lot of stuff. France is absolutely in fiscal crisis. They've been in debt basically since forever, but they've now reached the point after the 7 Years' War, after the American Revolution, that they can't function anymore and they can't get any more loans. The country is really suffering. Most of the population kind of lives on the edge of extreme poverty. Most of the population is peasants. So we've talked about the different kind of situations that the three estates or social classes are in, the clergy and the nobility, that's estate 1 and estate 2, being in very good shape, lots of legal privileges, lots of wealth, lots of ability to get positions that pay well. So they've got life pretty nice, and they pay very low taxes, and they own together about 30% of France's land. And that's significant when they're only 3% of the population, actually a little bit less than 3. And then we get the third estate. Third estate, everybody else, everybody who's not noble, not clergy, and there's different groups within the third estate. We've got the bourgeoisie, the kind of educated urban upper class, but they're not noble. They're lawyers, they're doctors, they're teachers, they're steeped in Enlightenment thought. They're reading it, they're thinking about it. And then we've got next down that third estate, we've got those sans-culottes, those urban poor, the workers, the people who are really going to be the muscle of the revolution. That's going to be the urban poor, the Paris mob. And then we've got the Estates General, which is called, the crisis is so bad, Louis can't resolve it. He's told, you can't raise taxes, king. And, if he were Louis XIV, he would have done it anyway. And he would have taken care of any opposition. But he will end up calling the Estates General for the first time in 175 years. And once they are in place, that's when we can really start talking about this being a revolution. So when the Estates General meets, their goal, at least for the third estate, they want to create a constitution. That's what they desire to do. They don't want to get rid of the monarchy yet. They just want to create a constitution. They want to do what Montesquieu said and have a government in which there are different branches with checks and balances. They like the English model of a constitutional monarchy. So that is the aim. The problem is the rules of the Estates General, which says you vote by estate, which means the third estate always gets outvoted. It's always going to be estate 1 and estate 2 going 2-to-1 against the third estate. And so the members of the third estate know how this could work out. It could just simply be, let's tax the third estate some more. And the third estate's like, no. So, they come in wanting a constitution, and they demand, we're going to vote as a single assembly, and they have a lot more seats than the others, so they know they can dominate a single assembly. This is breaking the rules, and the king is suddenly alarmed. He did not want to call the States General in the first place, but now he's really concerned. This could get out of his control. And so he basically says, you know, never mind. States General, you guys did great. Go home. We don't need you anymore. Just, we'll take care of the money problems in some other way. Have a great day. He actually locks the building and won't let the third estate come in, and that's when they will take the tennis court out. They gather on that tennis court. You know, most sports were invented by the Brits, or the Americans, but tennis, thank you, French. They gather there, sorry, I interrupted myself. They gather on the tennis court, and they say, we're not going anywhere. We're not leaving until we have a constitution. This is basically a complete denial of royal absolutism. They have now taken control. They name themselves the National Assembly. We're not the third estate. We're the National Assembly. We're the legal representatives of the French nation. This is significant. The king cannot stop this. And they basically now are taking control of this whatever it is becoming a revolution. But they're not leaving. They're going to write a constitution. And that means the king is automatically going to be demoted. They invite the members of the first and second estates, hey, if you're with us, come join us. Come sit in our assembly. A significant number, especially of the clergy, will come and sit with them. All right? Now, that's when things are going to get out of control. The king's not done. He's moving troops. He thinks it's kind of quiet and secret. He's moving troops down toward Paris, where they can threaten to move in on Versailles, where they can threaten to shut this thing down. And the rumor of troops moving gets to Paris. And the people of Paris, the sans-culottes, the other lower class elements, they basically rise up in revolt because their attitude is, you're not going to take our assembly. That National Assembly represents us, and you're not going to shut it down. They rise up, they storm this old prison. They think there's a lot of prisoners there. There aren't. There's only a very small handful. They think there's a lot of weapons. There aren't. They get what's there, but it's not a lot. But it is a violent seizure of this place. They're going to tear the whole building down when they're done. The guards there will all be executed, heads mounted on poles, paraded through the city. When I was studying this way back when I was in high school, I thought, you know, the French Revolution is like the American Revolution. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's a lot more violent. It's a lot more like a civil war. And it starts here with heads on poles parading around. And the Bastille itself just torn to the ground. Actually, you can see it today. They took the stones and they made a bridge. Also, some of the individual stones were carefully carved into model Bastilles. And this became a popular thing that whoever owned one of these stones would basically take it from place to place and show it off and charge a little fee. At least one of these model Bastilles made from a stone of the Bastille is still around. I want to say it's at Mount Vernon, George Washington's home, but it might be at the Smithsonian. Definitely seen it on one of my 8th grade trips to Washington. Anyway, the key to the Bastille is taken by the Marquis de Lafayette, who had served with George Washington in the Revolution. And it's sent to George Washington as a gift, saying, look, we're seizing our freedom and our liberty, and we're going to cement those rights, those Enlightenment ideals. We're gonna do it just like the United States did it. Washington receives the key to the Bastille. He puts it on his wall. If you ever go to Mount Vernon, it's there, right in the kind of the doorway area. And when you take the house tour, they always point it out. I have a replica, which I use as a bathroom pass. So there you go. Thank you, Marquis de Lafayette. Anyway, with this act of violence, almost simultaneously then, the peasants rise up. And we have what's called the Great Fear, as the peasants go storming through the countryside, sacking manor houses, attacking, assaulting nobles and their families, and looking mostly for food. But they also destroy all the records that have their rents that are due and their feudal labor obligations. I mean, it's the end of the 1700s, and the peasants of France are still stuck in the Middle Ages. They still owe their lords labor. Talk about a societal injustice. Anyway, the Great Fear, another part of this story in which the French Revolution is much more like a civil war, much more violent than the American Revolution was. The assembly, meanwhile, in session, begins to systematically dismantle the old regime, changing the laws, writing new laws. The feudal obligations that the peasants were so upset about, those are all abolished. They go after the Catholic clergy. They're going to confiscate church lands. Those will all be sold off. So all that national patrimony of the land is going to start returning to the French people. We're also going to force the clergy to take an oath of allegiance to the French state and to take a state salary. So, priests, bishops, monks, and nuns, everybody is now working for the state, working for France. Many clergy will refuse, and this is going to be a reason to persecute them very viciously as time goes on here. The privileges of the clergy, the nobility, they're all wiped away. They're going to have to start paying the same tax rate that everybody else is going to have to pay. We're going to get a tremendous statement of what they're about. When the American Revolution broke out and the United States finally decided, hey, let's be independent, Thomas Jefferson and his team wrote out the Declaration of Independence. And that had inspired these people. They had read it. They looked at that document and said, this is what we want to do also. And so they come out with their own, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen. And, it really has most of the same things, different phrasing, different number of articles that, you go through. But it's pretty much the same. Two big things are different. They basically come out and say, liberty is the right to do whatever you want as long as you don't hurt anybody else. And what a powerful impact that's had as time has gone on into the modern era. Think about something like marijuana legalization in the United States. Today, some states have already done it. Some states are thinking about it. I mean, if you follow the news, you know what's happening with that. But this idea that, I'm just smoking my doobie, I'm not hurting anybody, this is right out of the French Revolution. Liberty is the right to do anything you want as long as you hurt no one else. Also, they said that the law must not forbid things unless they're harmful to society. So these are standards that, aren't really so much in the Declaration of Independence for the United States or the U.S. Constitution or the Bill of Rights, but they bring them really front and center as part of the French Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen. Okay, all this stuff is great, but it's not putting food on the table. The misery in France goes on. People are still hungry. There had been bad harvests right before the revolution, and there are now very serious problems with supply. The peasants have gone nutso in the countryside. The food's not coming in, and Paris runs really short on food. The women of Paris, basically the female sans-culottes, now rise up, and it starts a bread riot, and they go down to the Hotel de Ville, the city hall, and give us food. Like, we don't have food. So they basically said, well, we know where there's food. And this massive group of women with weapons marches off to Versailles, where the king and the queen are. There's food there, they think, and it's 12 miles. That would take several hours. You can walk along at 3.5 miles per hour, so you do the math. But this mob of armed women arrives, and when they get there, they're not in a good mood. They storm in. Some guards are killed. It's a very threatening situation for the king and especially for the queen. But they are calmed down because the king says, I will come with you to Paris. And so now he's under the control of the revolutionaries. So this is the danger level for Louis has really ratcheted up. All right, I'm going to break there and get back to it.